All right, so in this video we'll be creating this thing, the image to the right. It is important that I mention here that we do not particularly say you must create this image like this. I mean, there's no rule that says this is the approach you must take, really. There's no rule that says this you must take this approach. Everybody has their own flavors to writing codes, and while there might be a lot of developers delving towards a pattern to write code, we can't say that if you are not writing your codes like that your code is not good enough, really. So it's the most important thing for me in this few years of doing this thing is that you must understand the structure. Whatever structure you are using, you must understand it and you must be able to explain it. So for me, the reason why I mentioned that is so that you will nobody says is that if I don't write it the way this guy wrote it, then it's not going to work. I try to, as much as possible, avoid putting myself in a position where I have to write multiple lines of CSS to be able to achieve a simple task. So I invest a lot of time writing my HTML, because once the HTML layout and the structure is okay, there is less to the acrobatic quote unquote that you're going to do when it comes to CSS. So from what I'm seeing here, we have the first thing is that I have the container. There's a container which is the primary container. Okay, so let me quickly explain something here. Like I've always said, it is not as if you don't write it the way I'm writing it that you're wrong. You're probably right. As much as possible, I don't like targeting my body when I am writing HTML. The reason is there is every tendency that this element I am saying now is actually a fraction of another document. So let's say, for example, there might be a particular document where this is just a fraction and they are just showing you this fraction. So I don't want a situation whereby I actually prepare my mind that this is all that exists within this document, and after a couple of days they are telling me that there are still more. Then I have to begin to break my code in the process of refactoring. So what I do is, as much as possible, I just let body be as a status quo element, being the parent of all of the elements, all other elements I'm going to use. I don't target the body. Rather, I create my own element and I fly with it. So that being said, the first one, I have actually done my setup here. So if you look at my file structure, you'll see that asset and index are siblings. So I can easily call asset and I can call the element within sibling, within asset, and it will work. So what do we do here? The first thing I want to do here is I want to create a section, and I'm calling the section main like this. Suffice to say that I'm actually using an emet abbreviation, so it makes my my naming very seamless. So this main I've created here is supposed to be this one with the orange background, and within the orange background I am going to create this one with this box here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another one. Optionally, I can actually create it also as a section, which does not have anything to do. So I have a section, and then I'm calling this content. Again, you can call it whatever name you want to call it. Now this content is going to contain these two content. So that means we have, as you can see now, we have an element to the left and we have an element to the right. So inside this content, I have two divs. I'm going to call this one left, and then I'm going to call this other one right. Okay, so, and I think that's all that we need to do. So this is fully my boilerplate. So this is my template, and from here going forward I am actually going to start working the way I want it to look like. Just so we are sure that this thing is actually working, let me quickly style this my what is it called, my main here, a bit. Let's run our live server and hopefully put it side by side so that we can see the entire screen. Okay, fine. So now the live server, yeah, great. So yeah, something like this. So I'm going to okay, so fine. Now something like this. So now what I want to do now is the next thing I want to do now is to connect my CSS. My CSS is located inside styles and style.css. So I'm just going to come here. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to do assets, styles, style.css, and that's that. So let's quickly go to styles, and the first thing, don't forget, is to do this, and we're going to say padding is 0, margin is 0, and box sizing is border box, like that. And I think that's the first thing. So the second thing we want to do is we want to create this orange. So first I'm going to target it. It's actually main, so I'm going to target main, and I'm going to do a width. I want the width to be 100%, which we have discussed before. So that means spanning the entire browser. I want the width to be 100%, and I want the height to be this time 100 view height. That is entire screen that I can see. Then I want the background color, background image, because as you can see here, this thing is having somewhat like a gradient, right? Oh, sorry. It's having somewhat like a gradient. Yeah, it's having somewhat like a gradient. So what we're going to do now is we would throw linear gradient into it, and the linear gradient, I like taking it simple. I'll just say to right, comma, I want red to orange, like this. So now that I've done this, you see I can now reduce the tone of this red. It is actually on this point. I can reduce the tone maybe somewhere here, and hopefully I think yeah, this close to it. So, and if I'm using that method, if I'm using this method, I can as well change it to what is it called? I can as well change it to hex, so that I can actually know the value that I'm actually calling. So something like this. It's still the same thing, but it's just changing the value from RGB to. So now that I've done that, if I should focus on this page, you see what I've done, right? So this is just so you know. So let's continue. So the next thing we want to do is within our content, we want this to be directly in the middle. So let me quickly create the content, and then we're going to target content again. Content, and what we are doing is we want content to be maybe a fixed size. So I'm going to do width, so it's going to be 60% of its parent, which is 60% of that, and then let's say height, and let's do again 60 view height. I hope yeah. Then for a moment, background color, we want it to be white. So let's just look at what it looks like. Do you see what it looks like? So I think we need to begin to work on our sizings now. So let me make this about 80%, and let's make this about 75%. Now something like this, I think it should serve us. Now if I throw margin auto, here, it shifts it to the center of the page like this, but it doesn't shift it from the top. Remember, what this is doing is it is actually shifting from the top, and it's shifting by the left and the right. So but what I'm doing here is only shifting from the top, so that means this approach will not work. So what better approach can we use? So what I'm going to do is I am going to comment off this, and I'm coming here and I'm adding display flex, and the flex, I am going to say justify content center, and I'm going to say, which is going to put it in the middle. Then to put it in the middle vertically, I'm going to say align item center. So that saves me a lot of stress automatically. So by this, I've been able to get this. So you can see now it saves me a whole lot of stress. So align, justify content, we'll move it from this point to this point. So justify content, we'll move it horizontally, while align will move it vertically, whatever it is, maybe for it horizontal and vertical, something like that. Okay, so now that is done, the next thing we want to do, so since we don't need this, I'm going to get rid of it. The next thing we want to do now is we want to target the division, right? So we want to divide this thing into two equal parts. So the first thing we want to do is, we know that there is left and there is and there is right. So let's do dot left, and then let's do dot right, like this. So this is permitted, so you can just do width 50%, like this. So if I throw, because it is a div, it's actually going to come as a block element by default. So when I'm doing this now, if I should throw a background color on this, you will see that it's possibly going to be like this, stacked on top of each other. So let me move my code environment. Let me move my code environment to this side, so we'll see it. So now that I've done this, I'm going to do background color just for a test. I'm going to do background color, say red, and then you'll see that this is going to be stacked on top of each other. Okay, so we didn't do height, so let's do height 100%, like this. So they have 100% of its parent. You see now it's going to be stacked on top of each other. Just so we know that this thing is stacked on top of each other, let's do border, and then we are doing 1px solid, and then we are doing black. You can see now, so this tells you that this thing is actually stacked on top of each other. So this is the first red, this is the first red, and this is the second red. So what do we do now? Remember that we said it's going to be 50% per piece, and we are saying the height should be 100% of its parent. So this one is already taking up the entire height because the parent is 100%. So what do we do now? The next thing we want to do now is to move this guy to the right. So there we are going to come here, and we are going to say display. We're going to say display, and we're going to flex it. Now it's automatically going to fix itself, and that is all we wanted, really. That's all we wanted. Now, sometimes we get to hear this question from people. So, what is the significant importance of creating this content? When left and right will definitely overshadow it, because as you can see now, it doesn't look as if content is even useful from this point of view. So, what is actually happening is that content, because like I said, depending on what you're doing, content is the one that is enabling us to arrange this guy, because whatever we are doing to left and right, we are doing it relatively to what content provision can cover. So if content is saying 100%, as you can see now, this particular main is occupying the 100% of the screen. But now we don't want content to occupy the 100% of the screen. We want it to occupy a certain fraction of our screen. So imagine now that content does not exist. What that means is that left and right will be behaving relative to main. So we just need to understand how these things work so that we don't do too much of acrobatic, right? So that's that about that. So now that we have done it, I will not add background color here. Really, this is not going to be where my background color will be, and I don't think I need this border for now. So the only thing that is generic to the two of them is width and height, because the two of them are sharing the same width and the two of them are sharing the same height. So I don't want to, I'm saving myself about 4 keystrokes now or more, because I will not be repeating in left. I will not repeat width and height again. I will just go straight to focus on the things that matters. So now, what do we want to do? The first thing, let's target right. And the first thing we want to do in right is that the background color should be somewhat gray, so we want to say background color, and then we are throwing gray into the picture like this. So it is not 100% gray, so we'll have to do some minor tweaks here. Let's move up a little bit. Okay, that's not fine. Let's move a little bit, and I think this is fine, so let's convert it to hexadecimal so I will be able to know the value we are calling. So now, and this other one is white. But before we continue, let's go and check the sample we are working on. So this is the sample, and I think our gray is still too dark. So let's go check again what we can do to improve the gray. So we're coming here now, and this gray, we say it's too dark, so we want it somewhere around here. Oh no, it's tilting towards red. Okay, fine. So I think this is far better, and this is the setup. Now, I don't have an image of a chair, so I'm just going to put something here that is going to mimic the chair for a minute. So here I'm going to come back to my index.html, and inside my lefts I just want to create an image, and I'm going to call the image div. I'm calling it chair, like this. Alright, so the chair is actually going to be in the middle, so I'm just going to style this to look like something I can use. So I'm going to get dot chair. Okay, the first thing is I want it to be a width. I want the width to be around 150 px, and I want the height to be 150 px. I want it to have a border 1 px solid and inherit blacks by default. I like that. Then I want the border radius to about 50%. Okay, so that's it, and that's all I want. So chair is inside left, so let's target left, and we're going to target left here. And what we want to do is we want to say display flex again. We want to throw display. I want to throw flex into it, right? Then we want to say justify content, center, and align items, center, like that. So it put it in the middle of the page, and I think that's all we want to do for now. So it's just a matter of you getting the chair, and instead of creating a div here, you can throw in an image here, right? You can throw in an image here, and that works. So now we can now go back. We can now go back and begin to look at how we can style all these things. So for my own case, I'm just going to do a little bit of content creation here and there. So permit me to move this to the left so that I can see it. I don't know why this guy images. Permit me to move it to the left like this. Okay, so permit me to move it to the left like this so I can see it. So inside right, the first thing we want to do here is we want to get its global chair. So this basically is up to you, honestly, because when you are creating a real life project, you would get what is known as user interface. So a product designer must have created an interface and share the interface with you. In sharing the interface with you, they will tell you the resources that is expected. Resources like the font name, the font size, colors, and things like that. They will share those things with you. But when we are building like this, we are building, let me say, not blindly, but we are actually building, because even you as a person looking at this thing, you don't even know the font that they are using. So beyond getting it word for word, future for future, it is important that you actually are able to create it to look relatively close to what you are being presented with. So the first thing here I'm going to do is, if I want, I can create a div to hold this thing. If I want, I can just go ahead and style just the way it is. So for now, these are block elements. These things are block elements up to this point. So I'm just going to use block elements. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a h3 here, and that h3 I'm writing global chair like this. I'm writing a global chair like this. Then that's all I want to do for there. Then the next one is I'm probably going to throw in an H2 here, and I'm saying arrow new. I don't know what is that. New style. So I can continue by breaking this, saying another H2, and I'm saying ball chair like this. Okay, then the next thing I want to do here is I want to throw in a P. Remember that these are a bunch of block elements. These are block elements, so I'm not bothered about. So I can just use my styling to create the spaces I want to create around it. So I'm just type a reproduction. Even though I'm not supposed to have the new. So let me say ball chair comes in a selection of colors and meets the architectural specifications of the original. Alright. Okay, so and that's all I want for that, and that's going to be the end of the P. Then I want to do this. I want to probably do it as an li, so I want to do ul, and I'm doing li in 3 places, and we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it in a moment. And then the last thing there, the last thing I'm going to do here is going to be we'll be creating a div, because we want to be able to do this in a flex. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm calling that div footer, which you can give any name of your choice. And inside that div we have 2 elements. The first one is all your choice, but I think I'm going to do an h3, and inside that I'm going to put in $h90, and then I am graciously going to add a button like this. Meanwhile, it is important that you notice that button is not a block element. Button is an inline element. Alright, so I'm going to put a button there. I'm going to call it buy now. So don't worry about me using this font. We would be able to change the font, and let's take a look at what we have done. Like, as you can see now, so the reason why this and this is not sharing the same line is because this is inline and this is block, so block will automatically take up the space, but we are putting it in a div, so I will be able to be flexible with handling it. So that's all we want, and then we'll go back to code. So I'm going to move my code editor to this side. I don't want that. I just want it to be on this side. Yep. So I want my code editor to be on this side, so and I will be able to see what I'm actually working on while I'm working on it. So let's start. The first thing is, let us target right, and then we want this to be in the middle. So by right we want it to be in the middle. So okay, so I can do let's go to right again. Here in right I can choose to do, say, let me throw in, if I do padding, which is wrong, I'm not supposed to do that. If I do padding and I say padding about 20 px and 0, you'll see that I've added a little padding to the top and the bottom, right? But of course this is not very good. So let's use, I'm going to use display again, and then I'm going to flex it, because it makes the job very simple for me. Now what you will notice here is that flex automatically by default arranges your content to be in rows. So once you throw a flex to a parent container, it flexes every element within that parent container to be in a row. So we need to alter that. So we're going to say flex direction, we're going to say flex direction column, so that it returns us to what it was supposed to be. Now, but then remember that the reason why we are doing flex here is because we want this thing to create a space on the top and at the bottom. So put this thing in the middle of the container. So we are going to say justify content center, because we are doing column. If we had actually done row, now we probably would throw in align items here, but because we are doing columns, then we are doing justify content. And then it is good that we create some level of spaces between the content and the edges of experience. So here we are going to throw in padding, and that padding is going to be, we don't want anything to be padded on the top, so we just want the padding to be on the left. So I'm going to do 0. I'm probably going to do something around 20 px or so, thereabout, so that we'll have a little space, a little gap, and you can increase it if you want. I'm usually of the opinion to use rem because it doesn't make me look as if I have used up all the spaces, but in actuality 3 rem is around 48, right? 48 px. But each time I see px in my code, you feel like, oh, you're using a very large numbers, but I can just then relative emphasis. Alright, so I think that this is pretty much all we want to do. So the rest of the job will now be just to style your pages, and then style the elements, and let's see what we can get out of it. So now if you look at our index.html, we have right, and we have h3, we have h2. So I want to target this h3. That's why I didn't give them any class. I want to target this h3 in relative to its parent element. So I'm going to be grabbing them through the parent. So the first thing we want to do is let's look at the template we're working on. Okay, global chair is capital letter. What's this? Global chair is capital
Hello
letter.
guys, welcome to Tech Junior channel. Now
let me get that document again. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, so global chair is capital letter, so we're going to target right. We're going to target right, and we're targeting H is our H3, right? And then the first thing we want to do is we want to do text transform. We want to convert it to uppercase, so we'll do this. Let me get this so you can be seeing it while we're walking. So yes, you can see now global chair is now capital letter. Let me move this so you can see it. So global chair is now capital letter. Then okay, so we want a little space between global chair and the subsequent element. So I'm going to throw margin, and the margin I'm throwing is going to be to the top and the bottom. I don't want margin on the left and the right. So I'm going to do again 2 rem, and I'm throwing 0 here. So there's going to be a little space. Yeah, so this is about 32 px space now. And then lest I forget, let's quickly do here, let's throw in font family, so that we don't use a generic font. And probably I think I like Franklin Gothic, and then it's something like this. No, I don't think I like this again. I've changed my mind. So let's do font family, and then let's go for Lucida Sans Serif and a family. Okay, so I think that's fine. That's fine. I think I like that. Okay, so now, even though yes, this is not the font on the original document, but then it's also good. This is just like trying out on the things we can do. Then arrow, annual, style, ball chair, and all the rest of them. The 2 of them are actually H2, right? The 2 of them are H2. And so what I'm going to do again is I'm going to target H2 in relation to its parent, which is right. So I'm going to do dot right, and I'm doing H2. And then what do I want? I just want margin. I want margin top and bottom 1.5 rem, and then I want 0. So it looks outrageous, so I probably would do 0.5 rem like this. Okay, so that makes sense for me. Again, then this is P, and I can do right P, and then what do I want? I just want to do, let's just say we are doing margin. It's just simple thing, margin, and I'd say I'm doing 0.5 rem also, and 0 here and there, so just spaces here and there. So now I think so a quick one, let's conclude this. So from our HTML, you can see that we have the li, which is what is displaying here by default. So the things we want to do are, number one, we want this to be displayed inline, and then we would do some little tweaks really to just get this done. And I'm taking this approach so that also, because it's something we would encounter over and over again, so it just makes sense that you are able to decide what approach you're going to use. So I have UL is directly tied to right, and then LI is tied to UL. So first thing first, let's be sure we have not written it. Okay, so we have not written anything in that regard. So first thing first, we're going to grab right, and then we are going to grab UL and then LI, right? Because LI is the one that displays this. It is LI that displays this element. So what we want to do with it, we want it to be able to display inline. So we are going to throw display inline, if you want inline block. Now it performs the problem I don't usually want to see. It removes that bullet. So now that it has removed the bullets, we are going to get to the root of it. So I need the bullet, but now default, once I throw inline, HTML removes the bullet that I have there. So what we want to do now is we are going to use a pseudo class to get that bullet back. So I'm going to do .write ULLI, that I'm throwing before, just like this before. So what do I want to do? The first thing I want to get there is to get the content, and we are using CSS element. So I'm going to do content equals and we do 225 CF. I hope this works. Okay, fine, yeah, this works. So 256F gives us those bullet. It's black by default, so we don't want to give some little spaces between them. So I'm gonna throw margin into it, margin, and probably let's do top and bottom 0, then left and right 0.3 rem, like this, just like so, just to give you a little bit space. And I think that's all. But if you look at the job we are working on, if you look at this job we're working on, I think there is a little bit of modification that might be of interest to us. Okay, so there is a little bit of modification that might be of interest to us. And the first modification there is that the first element is actually orange, the next one is green, and the next one is black. So because of that, let's make all the colors, really. Let's make all the colors. Let's see if orange will work for us. I hope this works. Orange will work for us. Let's get our browser. Okay, orange works for us, so perfect. So I'm just gonna get this back. and then I'm going to get this also on the screen so that we can just be seeing what we are doing across board. So orange works for us. I think font size, let's do some smaller. Let's see if that works. Okay, so it reduced the size a little bit, so that means I can add a figure to it. So let me say about 6 rem, I'm sorry, 6 px, and then okay, so that works. I think 6 px is quite small. Let's do about 10 px. Okay, so that works. So now that we have done this, all of them have inherited this. So the next thing we want to do now is we want to be able to pick entities within this block. So the first thing I want to do is I want to target the second element in this series, which is this. We want to target it, so we're going to do dot right ULLI, and then we are throwing in nchild, which is the second element. Then we are saying because we are actually getting the element using before here, so we just have to append before to it, and then we are saying before. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is that we want the color to be different. So the color is going to be green, so we want to do color, and we want it to be green like this. That settles that. Then we'll probably want to increase the font size, so let's do font size, and possibly, since we are doing 10 here, let's do 14 here, 14 px, so a little bit bigger, right? And then we might want to make it a little bit more bigger than that, so let's say that's about 18 px instead of 14. 18 px, so a little bit more pronounced. Then what again are we doing here? Okay, then what again do we want to do? Okay, so we'll come back to it. Let me get a third element. Dot right ULLI and child 3 before, and then the color of that should be gray. Color is gray, and then the font size is possibly say 24 px, just like so. Yeah, something like this. And I think I'm actually noticing an error here, but I will leave it like this just so we are able to. We can throw in box shadow really. I think we can throw in box shadow, border radius, and the rest of them. But this just gives you an idea. So I think the last thing we want to do is we want to do cursor, and we want to do pointer, so that when we come there, you can turn to this and so on and so forth like that. Okay, so and that's just what I wanted to finish up now. Okay, so the last thing there, we'll come back to that. The last thing there is footer. So because footer is supposed to also, it's also supposed to share a line, so I'm going to do footer, and I'm going to do display. I'm going to do display flex like this. So you can see now it works. Then we want to put want this to be in the middle. We don't want it to be sticking to one side, so we are going to do justify content center, so it moved it in the center of the page. Then we want to create a significant gap between this and this, so we're going to do gap, And for my gap, I'm doing about, say, let's do about 2 rem and see how it works. So yes, that's fantastic enough. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. So we want to target footer button, so we're doing footer button, and the first thing we want to do is we want to create a gap between it. So we're doing padding, and then the padding is going to be, we want padding on the left and we don't want padding on the right, so we're going to do 0. We don't want padding on the top and the bottom, that's why I'm giving 0. So we want padding on the left and the right. I'm going to do about 1 rem like this, and that's what it turns out to be. So that works. Then I think we can do height. Let's say 1 rem. By default, that 1 rem doesn't work. So let me do, say, 2 rems, and I think this is fine. 2 rem is fine. Then want to do border radius. We just want to do 0.9 rem. Like I just tied a little bit on an edge, so that seems to be too much. Let's do 0.5 rem. Okay, so that makes sense. There's supposed to be a background color of orange. Background color of orange. I don't know the hex value of orange, so we can now begin to like modify. So it's tilting towards red like this. Let's say something around this value is fine. Remember also, you can just click on this to toggle the hexadecimal value. So I'm just going to toggle the hexadecimal value here. If I want, I might remove the border transparent. So I just remove the border. The border is not there, so this looks more cool. Then, but if you notice, you will see that this and this, they are not sharing the same line. So we're going to come back here, and then we are going to throw in align items, and we're going to say center. So it's position the two of them on the same row, and I think that's pretty much it.